So in late 2021, early 2022, I started something that I have continued on and have continuously been impressed by throughout this entire year. I started requesting screeners. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because in another video, somebody simply put the word screeners, ? Because I assumed that this was common knowledge because I've been talking about it on other platforms. And then I'm like, hey, wait, I haven't actually mentioned this on YouTube. Now, some people are going to know what screeners are and some people aren't. And they're simply put, I'm trying to think the best way to, they're early access to upcoming films or films that have already been released but maybe aren't local to you. So the reason I started doing or watching screeners and reviewing them was because I was doing the Oscar death race, which means I try to watch every single Oscar-nominated film before the Oscars, which is great. Now, if I lived in Chicago or New York or LA or other large markets, this wouldn't be much of a problem. I don't live in a large market, though. Surprise! So, for me to do the Oscar death race was a challenge. There were often times in years past where I would take a 3-hour car drive to Chicago or a 3-hour car drive to St. Louis. But every place that I went was like a 3-hour car drive, even Iowa City. So while I didn't mind doing this, it was a fun experience. It didn't really give me the confirmation that I knew that I'd be able to complete this every year. I still don't have that confirmation. But last year when the shortlists came out, which are they come out December 21st, so 11 days from now, they are the list of movies that are eligible to be nominated for this year's Oscars. So I'm trying to think of how to word this. A couple days ago, the Academy released the list of eligible films, which a lot of movies. So there's no way that I can go off that. I mean, it's fun, but it's still not narrowed down. On the 21st, they will release what are called the shortlists, which are a much smaller list of films that are eligible. Out of that group, they will pick who gets nominated. So once the shortlists are nominated or released, I really start jumping on board. I dig into, like, has this already been released? Is this on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or HBO or any other of the various streaming platforms? So what I did last year, I went through and found all the ones that I could, and then there were a group. There were probably 10 to 12 international films and documentaries that were just not available. They hadn't been released yet, or they weren't on a streaming platform, or they had yet to be released in theaters, even in Chicago or St. Louis or anywhere else. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something that I've always wanted to do. I've always talked about movies. I've always done short reviews on movies. I'm going to become a movie reviewer. And for the last year, basically year, give or take, I have been watching a boatload of movies. So I knew there were a lot of movies that came out every year. Without a doubt, there are a lot of movies. As of January 1st, 2023, I'm estimating I will have watched 510-ish movies in the year 2022. That's just mind-boggling. What may be even more mind-boggling is of that 510, I bet the majority of the population don't recognize, I'm going to say 2/3, if not more, of these movies that I've watched. Film is insane. I had no clue. I knew there were a lot of movies released every year that the general public didn't know about. I had no clue how deep this rabbit hole goes. And I've only scratched the surface. I've only been doing this for a little under a year. So it makes me wonder, like, how many movies truly get released every year? But yeah, anyways, the whole purpose of this was to give a little background on what I'm doing, what I'm going to attempt to do here more on YouTube, and what a screener is. So when I started reaching out for the access to these films, I simply said, hey, look, I'm doing the Oscar death race. Your film is on the short list. I would like to screen it and write a little review about it. And a lot of places reached back out and was like, oh, here you go. Here's a link. Go watch it. And I was like, whoa, that's way easier than I thought. Now, I'm not going to get the next Marvel movie. I'm not going to get the next Sony or Universal movie. Like, I'm not going to get Fast and the Furious 23 or whatever they're on right now. 10, 11, something like that. I'm not going to get those movies. And I've come to terms with that. Even the big reviewers, critics, don't get those movies. Now, some of those movies are screened in theaters, local in Chicago or New York or LA, but they're not sending screeners to critics to review them. So that was kind of a learning curve, because I needed to realize, hey, what can I get versus what can't I get? I still shoot for the moon. I mean, I reached out to see if I could get a screener of Wednesday on Netflix. And they're like, oh, unfortunately, we're not doing screeners of this. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Thanks. I mean, you don't know unless you ask. So you got to shoot your shot. And, you know, it doesn't always work. Sometimes they ghost you. Sometimes you never hear back. Other times they send you surprise screeners in the mail, physical releases. I mean, I didn't realize I was going to get this, this came out streaming several months ago. Several months ago. It's an anthology series of horror movies. I didn't know I was going to get this. They just sent it to me, and that's fantastic. There are a lot of places that are better with screeners than others. I will not go through the list because a lot of them don't just want that information public. I will give some hints, though. It's very easy to Google things to start to narrow down. Some of the movies come directly from the studio that created the film. Some screeners come from the distributor who distributes the film. Some will simply, the lower budget, those will simply come from directors or actors in the film. So it's a mixed bag. It's never going to be a direct answer. There are also a lot of companies that handle strictly just the publicity of these films. So I've got probably 40 plus normal contacts that I'm in touch with regularly to find out what they're releasing. Sometimes I'll get on a mailing list that they reach out to me and say, hey, we're releasing this. Do you want to cover it? Other times I'm constantly having to reach out and be like, hey, can I get a screener of this movie? Like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, that's just my little over explanation on what screeners are, where they come from, how they affect me, and how they could affect you. Now, I will say, in order to do screeners, you do need to build a background. Whether it's doing YouTube videos or doing reviews on Instagram or having your own website or having a TikTok, whatever the case is, you can't just start reaching out and say, I want to screen your movie. I mean, some people will accommodate that, but more often than not, they want proof that you will do something with it after screening it, not that you will just watch it, enjoy it, and move on. They want to know that they're getting something in return. So yeah, that's basically my 2 cents. I hope you guys enjoy this. Please do the like, follow, comment, all that good stuff. The more of that I get, the more the channel grows, the more I'm able to do this. And I guess I will see you guys next time.